allow a couple minutes. So here we go. So welcome, you guys. It is 2 o'clock here. I'm assuming it's, if you're at Easter time, it's 2 o'clock there as well. If you're just joining us and you're here for the National Small Business Association live webinar, you are in the right place, so stick around. I want to give people a couple of minutes just to log on and make sure that we get started all together. Do you know what I mean? So we'll give you a couple minutes there. My name's John Schindell. If this is the first time that we have hung out together, fantastic. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you. If you are joining us from LinkedIn, apparently, and this is the first time I've done one of these with StreamYard, but apparently if you type something in the comments section, it'll show up. So I'll be able to see that. So if you are going through and you have some comments, let me know. If you want to let me know what your small business is or where you are joining us from, that would be fantastic. It'll give me an idea of how to maybe tailor, right, this presentation so that it's relevant to you. So yeah, so if you've got like a small mom and pop shop, or you're running a machine shop, or whatever it is, whatever your small business is, you know, if you feel brave enough to share that, go ahead and put something in the comments section, and hopefully it'll show up here. We can, I won't call you out, but I can at least reference that as we're going through. So listen, I think that I have vamped long enough so that everyone who wants to join us can. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today, we are going to talk about effective hiring and talent management, but we're going to do it using the DISC system of behavioral analysis. And for those of you who are not familiar with the DISC system, I am going to quickly introduce you to that. Today, if you have some experience with the DISC system, fantastic. Let me show you how, like, seriously, how useful this knowledge can be when it comes to hiring and talent management. So let's go ahead and jump into this right now. Here's what we're going to do. The one thing I want to promise you is this: I am not going to spend the next hour or so reading PowerPoint slides to you. Okay, so here's the deal. I will put these slides up. You guys can take pictures, whatever you need to do. But I do want to talk to you about what I believe talent management is. And the biggest thing that I want to emphasize when it comes to talent management is it needs to be on purpose. It needs to be purposeful. It's a process that you will use that's deliberate and not haphazard, right? Most people do their hiring, they do their talent management by luck. I hope this next candidate works out for me. I want to show you how you can be a little bit more purposeful in your next hire or even in your next promotion. So that's really what, and we need a tool to do that. And that's really what DISC provides us. It provides us an instrument that we can use to be a little bit more scientific in our approach to hiring and selection, for example, or even ongoing development of your current staff, morale, retention, keeping your good employees happy and motivated, right? And then even avoiding the Peter principle of promoting somebody who's currently with you past their capabilities. And so we are going to use, again, this tool, this DISC behavioral system, in order to help us with all of these things that I just mentioned. So let's kind of dive into it. If you're unfamiliar with DISC, let me introduce you guys today. People, business owners, this is the DISC system. DISC system, these are our business owners. And DISC isn't actually an acronym. DISC is, DISC stands, the D in DISC stands for dominant or decisive or direct. So they make up about 3% of the general population. I typically like to say, if it was any higher than 3%, we would be at war all the time. So the D in DISC stands for that dominant, decisive, or direct type of person. The I stands for influencing. They make up about 11% of the general population. And that influencing style, if it was any higher, it would be fantastic. We'd all have matching shirts, but we wouldn't get a lot done. That I is impulsive. They're interactive. They're interested in people. I's are very people-oriented. A majority of people that we interact with on a daily basis are this S, or stable or steady style. S's make up about 69% of the general population. And again, it's the largest majority of people that we are going to be dealing with on a daily basis. And then the remaining styles, that last 17%, they're the C's in DISC: compliant, correct, cautious, conscientious. And so when we put all these styles together, D, I, S, and C, that's the acronym I was talking about, but it really kind of gives us an overview of the 4 characteristics that are present in all people. So every person is made up of a little bit of a D, I, S, and C. What we're going to learn, though, is that each of us will have a different intensity of each one of these styles. So let me break it down a little bit better, and then we can start applying what we're learning right now, right? So let's take a closer look at that D, or dominant or direct style. So that D style, typically that person has a high ego strength. And what I mean by that is it's hard to tell a D that they're wrong. Ds truly believe in what it is that they are doing, right? Ds also tend to gravitate towards leadership positions. They seek authority. They want to be in charge. The Ds in your world want to be in charge. They want to control their environment. They also tend to be very impatient. They move at a quick pace. They typically multitask. They do a lot of things at once. But here's the thing you need to know about a D style. They expect the people around them to be doing the exact same thing, right? And so if a D is looking at you doing one thing, but doing it well, and they're juggling several tasks, they might say to that person, you don't have enough to do, I'm going to give you more work, right? So understand that about a D personality style. They tend to be impatient. Now, Ds are not only comfortable with change, they're typically change agents. They're the people in your organizations that will change things up just to see how it goes, right? So when the entire world is comfortable leaving things the way they are, their motto is don't rock the boat. The D says, hey, let's change things up. So not only are they desirous to change, they usually are the change agents. They're the ones that are implementing or directing that change. I mentioned that Ds are multitaskers, right? They tend to do a lot of things at once, and they respond to direct confrontation. And what I mean by that is there are styles out there, if they feel challenged or if somebody says something to them, for example, a lot of people will say, you know what, I'm going to ignore that or pretend it didn't happen. That's typically not the response of the D style. The D will respond directly to any confrontation. And for the D style, their main preoccupation is problems. Ds are problem solvers. Ds want to solve problems. So know that about a D style. Their main preoccupation is problems. So that's the D style. So let me ask you, anybody out there feel like that's your primary style, that you're primarily a D personality style? Let me know in the chat window. Go ahead and type something in the comment window, and I can see how many Ds out there. But typically, a little bit of D goes a long way in a business or an organization. So if you haven't figured it out yet, I am this next style. I'm more of this I style. This I style is influencing, it's inspiring, it's interpersonal, it's also impulsive a little bit, some good I words, but I's are emotional. And what I mean by that is, look, I don't mean that they cry at movies, even though I have been known to cry at movies. I's emote. An I will typically let the people around them know how they're feeling. If an I's having a great day, everybody in the office knows I'm having a great day. If an I's having a terrible day, everybody in the office knows I'm having a terrible day. This is the worst day there ever was, right? I's are emotional. They let people know what's going on inside them. They also are very people-oriented. They will gravitate, they will ignore a task in order to talk to a person almost every single time. So I's are wired to connect with or interact with other people. So I's are people oriented. I's live in the moment. I's, so here's the thing. If you got in a fight with an I last week, chances are that I has already moved on and forgotten about it. But because they're not dwelling on the past, but they're also not thinking or planning too much for the future. I's live kind of in the moment. And so you need to know that about an I personality style. I's tend to be very optimistic, and I genuinely believe that things are going to work out for the best. I truly believe that things will work out for the best. That's part of my style, right? So I's are optimistic. They're also, because of that optimism, they tend to be very encouraging to the people around them, because that optimism, right, is contagious. It's not only is it going to work out for me, it's going to work out for you and for all of us as long as we stick together. So I's tend to be very encouraging to the people around them. I's also tend to be very persuasive. So a lot of times you'll see these I personality styles in fields or jobs like marketing or advertising, sales or customer service or public relations, right? Any place where they get to interact with or connect with or talk to other people. And the I's preoccupation is people. So the D's, their preoccupation is whatever it is, right? It is what? problems, right? So, and the I's preoccupation is people. So yeah, so a LinkedIn user said the D style seems like it's excluding some types of leadership styles. We're going to talk a little bit about leader, and this is a thank you, LinkedIn user. I appreciate the comment. Look, there's not one style or another that's better at leadership. They all just have a different approach, right? And so even though the D tends to be a natural leader, sometimes you need somebody who is more motivational or friendly. That could be the I. Sometimes you need an expert, right? And that can be the C. So we're going to get into the different styles. We're going to apply them to leadership. But yeah, understand that any style can do any job. Any style can be a leader. They just have different approaches to it. So check this out. A majority of people, I'd mentioned this before, are going to be this S style: stable, steady, secure. 69% of the population, if you remember, they tend to be very loyal and trustworthy. So the thing about the S is if they say they're going to show up at 8 o'clock, they'll be there for you at 8 o'clock. Understand that about the S personality style. S's are instinctively team players. They actually do better work as part of a team than they will by themselves. They're instinctively they do better as a collective, right? They're instinctively team players. S's will use the word my a lot because they're possessive. So they'll say something like, hey, who took my pencil? Or that's my mug? Or who parked in my parking space? But they also take ownership of their clients. Hey, who's working with my client today? Take care of them. They've been with me for a long time, right? So they're possessive of territories, people, and also things. But know that about the S personality style. They're also instinctively great listeners because they're so empathetic. They're steady, they're reliable, they're stoic. And what I mean by stoic is this: where an I emotes, where an I tells everybody how they're feeling, the S will keep that information to themselves. They're a little bit more private. Now, I will say this about the S personality style: the S is also relational. So if you have two S's that are friends for a long time and they feel comfortable around each other, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between two S's talking and two I's talking. The difference is the S will only share that information with people they feel close to. An I will share that information with the entire world, with somebody they just meet off the street. So big difference between the I and the S. The S is a little bit more stoic. They keep that information private, and their preoccupation is pace, right? So the S is preoccupied with pace, and typically the pace for the S personality style is slow, steady, planned, not impulsive. That's the S personality style. And then the last style I want to introduce you today to is the C style. That C stands for compliant, correct, or conscientious. C's tend to be perfectionists. There's a right and a wrong way to do something with the C, and they want to do it the right way. C's tend to be sensitive, especially to criticism. They want to do things correctly. They want the people around them to be doing things correctly as well. Their approach is typically more accurate and more analytical. They tend to be organized and orderly, especially when it comes to executing. How about this? The C style uses information to make decisions. They're typically logical thinkers. And so the C needs details. And because they need those details, they tend to ask a lot of questions. They're curious, right? They need information in order to make decisions. C's tend to be very precise communicators. And what I mean by that is I'm an imprecise communicator. If you said, John, are you coming over this weekend? I would say, yes, I'll be there when I'm done with my thing, right? So whatever my thing is, however long it takes me, you have no idea. That's when I'm showing up. That is an example of imprecise communication. That drives the C style crazy. C's tend to be precise communicators. If the C says, I'll be there, they'll say, I'll be there at 3:30. And guess what time they show up? 3:30, right? That's the C style. They're precise communicators. They expect the people around them also to be precise communicators. And if they're not, what will they do? They will ask questions because they need that information in order to make a decision. Their preoccupation is procedure, right? There's a right and a wrong way to do things, and the C's want to know the right way, and they want you to know the right way. So if you don't know the right way, ask a C. They probably have a procedure for that. So listen, we've gotten to know the four characteristics in people, right? The dominance, influence, steadiness, compliance, the D, I, S, and C. of the DISC system. What we're going to do now is we're going to take this little bit of knowledge that we have, this understanding of people, and we're going to try to use it for hiring and selection. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about today, right? How to use the DISC system when it comes to hiring and selection. And let me actually tell you, if this is your first introduction to DISC, and I know that we went through this pretty darn quickly, you're going to be surprised how easy it is to take this information and apply it to your hiring process. And there's a system that allows you to make it easier, and we're going to go over that today. So, but before we do, I want you guys to just take a minute, take a deep breath. We're going to play a game, and you can play it right now in front of your screen, starting in the upper left corner. If you can guess what animal that is, and if you said tiger, you are correct. And next to the tiger, this is actually a tough one. Next to the tiger would be a leopard. Right? If you said cheetah, I'm going to give you a pass on that. That's pretty darn close. Next to the leopard would be Dalmatian. If you said dog, I will give it to you, but it's definitely a Dalmatian. Next to the Dalmatian, snake is all I'm looking for. If you said ball python, that's more information than I needed, but snake is fine. What about the lower, I guess it would be the lower left-hand corner of the black and white stripes? Yep. All right. So zebra. Next to zebra would be a peacock. I feel like you guys are doing good. Yep, I can see some of it. And then next to peacock, the clownfish. If you said Nemo, I will also accept Nemo as the correct answer, but it's a clownfish. And then the final pattern that we're looking at is that of a giraffe. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that most of you got almost all of these correct, right? You were pretty adept at identifying the patterns. And the reason I like to talk about patterns is these same patterns that exist in animals also exist in people, because DISC is actually just us labeling observable behavior. Dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance are all behaviors we can see in other people, right? And so when we get used to looking for the patterns in people, we'll be able to tell something about the nature of that person. And look, when it comes to hiring, for example, if I had to hire a manager for a herd of zebras, for example, I probably want to avoid hiring a tiger or a leopard because I know ultimately that's not going to work out, right? And so even though that's an oversimplification, this is the kind of insight that understanding DISC, understanding the behaviors in people will give you when it comes to hiring and talent management, right? So being aware of somebody's personality style allows you to match the right person to the right job. So I'm going to start with the question is, do you know who you're looking for, right? Do you know who you're looking for? And it really depends on the job. So look, if you're looking for somebody who's productive and competitive and aggressive, then you're looking for more than likely a D-style person. If you are looking for somebody who's talkative and spontaneous and enthusiastic because maybe you want them out there in front of customers or clients, then chances are you're looking for an I-style person. If you're looking for somebody who's loyal, dependable, a good listener, maybe customer support or customer service, right? Then you're looking for that. Typically, you're looking for that S-style person, that stable, steady style. And if you're looking for somebody who's a little bit more logical or detail-oriented or organized, maybe somebody, for the accounting or bookkeeping, then you're probably looking for that C-style person. Okay, so now we can start to see the patterns that people have, right? Should align with the roles or the responsibilities that we are hiring for. So for the D style, business development, right? Probably a great fit for them. So if you're looking for somebody in business development, maybe you should focus on the D's that are coming in. If you're sales and promotion, if you're hiring for one of those positions, maybe you should focus on the I candidates that are coming in. What about customer support or customer service? Typically S's excel, they thrive in that environment. And finally, quality assurance, compliance, accounting, anything that's detail oriented. And if you need to know how to use a spreadsheet, right, probably the C-style candidates are going to fit the bill for that, right? And so again, we're starting to maybe understand that each job that we are hiring for may require a different set of behavioral skills. And now we're knowing, or now we're being a little bit more purposeful in what we're looking for in candidates, okay? Now, let me just pause and say this. The best way to understand who you're dealing with, who your candidates are, is to get them a DISC assessment. And let me be a little bit more specific. The best way is to get them a PeopleKeys DISC assessment, right? Because our online platform, our online portal allows you to purchase the assessment, send it out to your candidate, and then get the results automatically sent to you. But more than that, it allows you to rank your candidates based on what we call a performance benchmark. Oh, so now I'm going to slow down, because if you weren't paying attention, you're probably going to want to start paying attention now. What's a performance benchmark, John? Fantastic question. Let me answer that for you. We know that every job has basically a skill set that we're looking for, right? So again, accounting is probably a different skill set than that of sales or customer service. So if we understand what the job requires, then we can build, right, an ideal candidate based on the requirements of the job. So what we do is we give your candidates, we give people applying for the job a chance to take a DISC assessment. And that DISC assessment allows you to quickly and accurately assess those candidates as they come in. Now, I gave this candidate a DISC assessment, and here's what I know about them. They're verbal and persuasive, they're decisive, they have the ability to think outside the box, they're visionary. Look, they're not very organized, but they're good at building consensus. This is a person that would rather work by themselves, and they tend to tackle things head on. So I know all this information about this candidate because it's in the report that I automatically get back. So once this candidate takes this assessment, I get this full report about this candidate, and I can read this report, and it will help me make an informed decision on whether I want to hire them or whether I want to offer them the job that I'm hiring for, right? So the first thing is I get my candidates assessed, I get this report back, but now I also, on top of that, I build a benchmark. And what a benchmark is, it's the ideal for the candidate or for the job, right? So now, even before I send out these assessments, I work with PeopleKeys. I work with John at PeopleKeys, right, to get a benchmark in my account for the position or the positions that I'm hiring for. And so now automatically what happens is, even after this candidate takes the assessment, and even if I don't take the time to read their report, the system will automatically rank them red, yellow, green, right? They'll automatically rank them as to how closely they match the ideal benchmark for this position. So this person, knowing nothing about them, probably not the best candidate for our accounting and finance, might work in marketing and communication, but is a dead-on fit for new program development. And it makes it that easy, right? And so let me show you what the interface looks like. So your interface, your PeopleKeys account, your online PeopleKeys account, the place where you buy and distribute these assessments, will come with a page that ranks all the candidates. So as you send out these invitations and candidates complete the assessment, they're basically listed here. So all your candidates are in one place for you to take a look at. And after you get those candidates in, you can apply a benchmark, right? You can apply a performance benchmark. In this case, in this sample, we're hiring for a nurse. So now I've applied this benchmark that says, which one of these candidates, based on what we know about them, is probably going to be successful as a nurse? And what happens then is, when we apply that benchmark, and we create that benchmark using either the industry standard, we know typically what makes a good nurse, or we have you fill out a survey to tell us exactly what you're looking for, or check this out, we have one of your top performers, your current top performers, take an assessment, and then we use their results to build a benchmark, right? So we can use a combination of any of these three methods to add this performance benchmark to your account. Give me just a second. So what happens then is, once it's created and applied, you will notice that your candidates are automatically ranked based on how closely they match that performance benchmark, all in one system. You don't even have to think about it. You can log in, and it'll automatically put your best candidates at the top and your worst candidates at the bottom, and you can focus your time and energy on those candidates who are a behavioral match, right? Now think about what an awesome tool that would be. How much time you could devote to doing other things besides filling that position. Okay, so that's really what it does. It gives you the ability to be a little bit more purposeful and deliberate in ranking and hiring candidates based on their behavioral style, the behavioral match they have to the skills that are necessary to be effective in that job. So that's really what DISC does in relationship to hiring and selection. Okay, now let me do this. I just unpacked a lot of information for you. I get that. I'm going to slow down. I will try to be available at the end of this for specific questions. But again, I encourage you to use that chat feature. So if you have any comments or anything, go ahead and let me know, and I will try to address them as we're going through. But I want you to understand, again, how awesome or how effective using something like a benchmarking system can be when it comes to increasing, right, the effectiveness of your hiring efforts, if that makes sense. Now, assuming that we have candidates that are already in or part of the organization, or maybe we're not even hiring somebody new right now, we can use the same techniques for ongoing development. So every person that works for you and works for your company is or has a personality style. And if those styles are in harmony, fantastic. They tend to work really well together. If not, then maybe there's some communication obstacles. I can give you some really good tips and tricks to improve communication within any organization by understanding the people that are working there, right? So let's talk about ongoing development a little bit. This same DISC report that you're using for hiring, this same report can be highly effective in helping you to improve the communication that with your existing team members, team building, leadership development, even sales and customer service training has a lot to do with understanding the styles of the people that you're typically communicating with, right? Personal development, personal growth, and then conflict resolution. Those are all things that this DISC assessment, this PeopleKeys DISC assessment can really can help you with by being a tool to allow you to see, right, what's behind the facade, right, to understand how a person tends to or wants to communicate with the world around them. Okay, so let's talk about your current employees. So I'm going to have you pause and think about your business, whether it's just you and one other partner, or maybe it's 3 people, or think about this. If there's 2 of you right now starting a business in a garage, okay, and you're about to hire 1 person, you're gonna grow your company by 33%, right? That is an important hire. So understanding who you're hiring or the dynamics of the people that you're working with right now becomes super, super important. So let's do this. I'm going to do a hypothetical here, right? How many of you guys out there, by show of hands, like meetings? Does anybody really like meetings? All right, I'm going to tell you a secret. I can't really see your hands raised, so I'm just going to trust you. But my guess is all the eyes raised their hands. Everybody else said no. We could probably do this in an email, right? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to run through this hypothetical situation, and it's how to choose a meeting leader. And I want you look, this is a little bit tongue in cheek, but there's some really valuable information for you here. So I want you to pay attention, because let's assume that you run meetings just like every other business in the world runs meetings. There's one person typically in the organization that is in charge of those meetings. It's my job to run the meeting. I'm going to have the meeting. That's who runs the meeting. I always run the meeting. I'm the only person that will ever run the meeting. If we can get outside of that mindset, if we can say, why is it one person's job to run all the meetings in this organization, right? Why don't we choose meeting leaders based on what we want to accomplish in that meeting? Already, that's pretty revolutionary thinking, right? So look, I know I asked you guys to play a game. It's because I'm an I. I want you to play one more game with me, okay? So while you're sitting there, answer the following statement. My ideal meeting would be what, okay? So look, if you're saying right now, my ideal meeting would be short, you're probably a D personality style, right? That's the D style. Look, we can have meetings. Let's just not make them take all day, right? So typically if you answered my ideal meeting would be short, you're probably a D personality style. Look, if your ideal meeting is fun, then guess what? You're one of us. You're the I personality style, right? Because every I out there, if you're honest, I's, you're saying, look, my ideal meeting would be fun, right? And so this is the I personality style. My ideal meeting would be collaborative. Check it out. That's the S personality style. The S's want to work together. Remember, they're more effective as a team. So understand that about the S personality style. And look, if you answer this question, my ideal meeting would be informative, then you're probably a C personality style. So check it out. Based on your personality style, you already have a different agenda for a meeting. D's, their ideal meeting is short. The I's, their ideal meeting is fun. The S's ideal meeting is collaborative. The C's ideal meeting is informative. Okay, so understand that whoever is running the meeting, look, if the D in your organization is always running the meeting, then those meetings are always short. Are they informative? Maybe, maybe not. Are they collaborative? Probably not. Are they fun? No way, right? So understand that. And then, if the I is always running the meeting, then sure, they may be fun, but we're not getting a lot done, and maybe they're running too long. Okay, so again, understand that based on whoever's running those meetings, you're getting a different flavor, or you're getting a different texture of what those meetings entail. Okay, so every style is going to run a meeting based on their personality style, right? So check this out. D's want to conquer. They want to be in charge. So the D says, listen to my plan. Strategic planning, tackling new initiatives, assigning tasks, creating deadlines. Those are all the things, like if those are the things that need to get done, then why don't you assign that meeting to a D personality style? Because that's instinctively what they want to do. Okay. Now think about the purpose of each meeting. Look, I's want to convince. I's want to, they want to communicate and talk to other people. They typically say, hey, listen to my ideas. I got a bunch of great ideas. That's the I personality style. So if the purpose of that meeting is to brainstorm ideas, for example, or to encourage buy-in, to get other people in the organization to buy into this, or to promote new ideas, or even to improve morale, then maybe the I's in your organization, maybe you should give them the responsibility of running that meeting, because again, that's instinctively how they're wired, right? Look, think about your next meeting. If the purpose for that next meeting is to gain cooperation, is to get your company, your organization to work together, who wants to cooperate? The S's. The S's want to cooperate. They say, listen to each other. It's not even about them. It's about everyone. It's listening to each other. And so if the purpose of your meeting is sharing information or supporting one another, or even resolving issues that may have come up, or maintaining positive relationships, that's where the S is ideally suited to run that type of meeting, right? And so maybe if those are the purposes, or if that's what you want to accomplish during that meeting, you need to put an S in charge of that meeting. And finally, look, C's want to, they want to be correct, but they also don't mind correcting other people. C's want to correct. They want to be correct. They say, listen to the facts. And so if the purpose for that meeting is providing information, providing accurate information, creating policies, for example, or analysis and review, right, after action reviews, or detailed planning, then the C style is going to be the ideal person to run that meeting. Okay. And so even if you don't get anything else out of today, then the fact that, you know what, I can have different team members run these meetings because they bring different skill sets to the table. You're already that much more effective in the way that you're running your workplace, right? In your workplace organization, the way that you manage your talent than you were just 10 minutes ago. Right? So understand that each style will run a meeting a different way, but each style will also handle clients a different way, or overcome obstacles a different way, right? Or fill out paperwork a different way. And so again, understand that each person in your organization, currently in your organization, based on their style, is going to bring a different set of skills and talents and insights to the operations that need to be completed, including running meetings. Okay, so look, let me ask you this. You guys can play along. So what is the best style for new development? Now think about the 4 styles: dominant, influencing, steadiness, and compliance. So if you had an employee, which one of your employees would be the best style for new product development, right? Well, the D wants to conquer, so it probably might be the D. What about this? What's the right style for maybe somebody who is, or for promotion and public relations? Which style of person would you want to put in a position that is dealing with the public or getting people excited about things, right? Remember that I style? Remember that I style wants to convince, and so that tends to be the perfect position for that I personality style. What about this? What style of person is probably more adept or going to be more effective at information sharing? Not disseminating information, not telling, right? But sharing information, building consensus, for example, right? And so think about the S personality style. That S personality style, S's want to cooperate. And so the S style might be the best style for that task. And then think about this: the right style for policies and procedures, right? The right style for either developing those policies or procedures or rolling them out or sharing them. Well, which style is super detail oriented? Well, that C style wants to be correct, and they want to correct others, but that C style is probably the best style, again, for policy, procedure, quality assurance, those kind of things. So again, we're starting to now understand that each person, each one of these styles, right, has a different set of strengths they can apply to different situations. Look, we're going to do this one more time. We're going to play the same game now that you're familiar with it, right? Now that you are comfortable. How about this? What style is right for strategic planning? It's the D style. Remember, because the D style says, listen to my plan. What about what style would be best for brainstorming, especially brainstorming sessions? What about this? What about that I style? Remember that I style says, listen to my ideas. So I's are fantastic in a brainstorming situation. In case you're wondering, what about this? What about the right style for conflict resolution? Let me tell you something about the S. If I didn't make it clear before, S's work better as part of a team, but they're also instinctive peacemakers. They want people to work well together. And so if there's a conflict, the S is instinctively hardwired to want to deal with, to want to resolve that conflict. So, the S style typically says, listen to each other. Don't necessarily listen to me, don't necessarily listen to him, but we need to listen to each other. And then finally, the right style for evaluation, for after action reviews, for quality, right? For quality assurance, that C style, typically says what? Listen to the facts. It's not about me. It's not about a personality. Here's the hard, cold facts that we need to look at objectively. And C's are really good at leading those kinds of meetings, right? They're really good in that situation. So there you go. Questions or comments about anything so far, please hold them, write them down, keep them in mind. You can put them in the comments section. I can get to them later. But I want us to begin thinking a little bit differently about the way that we can use the people who are part of our organization right now. Does that make sense? All right. So let's continue. Let's talk about workplace communication. The biggest thing, or the biggest obstacle sometimes that we have in our current workplace is the fact that our strengths, right, are also our limitations. The fact that everybody is not exactly your style in an organization can be annoying sometimes, but it can also be the strength that makes you successful. So let me put it this way. I'm an I personality style. I think I do a really good job of connecting with people. I think I do a pretty good job of convincing people. And I could convince you that you need surgery, right? And you might feel like, yeah, John, after everything you said, I might need surgery, but I feel in my heart of hearts that I don't want you to perform that surgery. And you would be right, okay? I would probably, as much as I like other eyes out there, I would probably want a C style to perform my surgery, okay? And we have different styles of communication. We have different viewpoints. We have different ways of looking at things. And so what we're going to work on today is how to overcome some of those communication obstacles, those impediments we have to communication, again, based on understanding our style and the styles of the people around us, okay? It's very easy. If you give everybody in your organization a 7-minute DISC assessment, you will have detailed information with specific communication do's and don'ts that you can use for the people around you, right? That's the power. That's how powerful this DISC report is. It gives you the specific do's and don'ts that we're going to actually go over right now. We're going to go over some of these do's and don'ts, but they're tailored for each individual's specific style blend. So let me tell you a little secret. Every single one of us out there, every single person today that is joining us is a blend, is a combination of each one of these characteristics. So everybody has a little D, I, S, or C, right? I have my D is expressed. My I is very strongly expressed. My S and C are not. So look, I'm a very high I. I'm a very people-oriented person, but I'm a very, very low C. Can I balance a checkbook? Yes, I can. Have I done it before? Sure, I've done it. But let me tell you a secret about me. When I'm done balancing my checkbook, not only am I cranky, I'm tired and I need a vacation, right? It takes a lot of energy for me to balance my checkbook. Yeah, but I can do it. Now, my wife is my opposite. My wife is a C. She constantly keeps the checkbook balanced. But if I asked her to go out and talk to new people or give a presentation, could she do it? Probably better than I could, but she would be tired and cranky afterwards. Does that make sense? And so part of understanding our style is understanding how much energy it costs us to do certain things. I's, for example, get energized when they're connecting with or talking to or communicating with other people. C's, for example, they get energized when they're doing detail work, when they're working by themselves, right? D's get energized when they're faced with a challenge. When there's something to overcome, D's get excited about it, right? S's get energized when they're working as part of a team. Do you want to demoralize an S personality style? Make them work by themselves. Oh, that's sad, right? You want to energize a D? Tell him he doesn't have to work with anybody else. He can work by themselves, right? They can work by themselves. So understand that about the D style. But when we talk about specific tips and tricks within the report, let's talk about this, right? So think of the D's that you know. Think of the D's in your life. And the things that will make or enhance communication with the D's in your life are these. The first thing is get to the point. Just bottom line it. D's want the bottom line. They don't want you to tell a story or beat around the bush. They want to get to the point as quickly as possible. So if you're trying to improve communication with the D, remember that. Also, D's tend to be what more than how. And let me back up and explain that. D's want to know what's happening. What's the plan? What are we going to do? They don't really care how we get there, but they want to know what is going to happen. Typically, in a meeting, a D will say, here's what I want to have happen. Here's what we are going to do. But all the detail-oriented people in the room say, okay, well, how do we get there? So they start talking about how we're going to budget, how we're going to allocate time, how they start talking about all these details, and the D's get frustrated, right? They're more about what than how. Just do it. I don't care how you get there. Tell me when it's done. Understand that about a D personality style. D's focus on the results. What over how, right? They want to know, just tell me what this is going to look like at the end. Will I be happier? Will I be richer? Tell me what it is. Why am I doing this? They're results focused. So talk in terms or speak in terms of results when you're trying to communicate or improve communication with the D personality style. Here's the secret about a D. If you are in sales or customer service, you want to give the D's options and choices. So let me tell you a story about my D son, if I can. So my oldest son, Joshua, he's an adult now, but when he was younger, we would try to put him to bed. And his bedtime was 8 o'clock. And I would say, Josh, it's 8 o'clock. You have to go to bed. And at some point in time, because he was D, he was a strong-willed child, and he would say, I am not going to bed at 8 o'clock. Now, my wife would not put up with this. So my wife would say, you are going to bed at 8 o'clock. There's no other option. But I want you to understand, for a D, there's always another option. And the option will be, no, I'm not going to do it. Okay. So you can diffuse the situation with any D by giving them an option and a choice. So let me show you what that looks like with Joshua. At 8 o'clock, we would say, Josh, 8 o'clock is your bedtime. If you would like to finish the show you're watching and go to bed at 8:30, that's fine. But there's no bedtime routine. We're not reading you a story. We're not tucking you in. We're not doing any of that stuff. At 8:30, you have to go straight to your bed and go to sleep. And now he has two options. He has control. He feels like he has control of the situation. And there were times where Josh would say, hey, look, I'm going to stay awake, and I get it. There's no bedtime routine. And so he would stay awake for an extra half hour, finish his show, go straight to bed. There were times where he would say, you know what? No, I want the bedtime routine. And so he would stop watching, get ready for bed, and then we would tuck him in. But the secret is this. Both of the options that we gave him, we could live with as parents. Does that make sense? You want to use that same technique as a manager or as a sales manager or what, like you find two options that you could live with and present them to the D and then make them choose, right? Give them a sense of control of their destiny, if you will. Talk about the benefits as it relates to the D personality styles, because Ds want to know what's in it for them. That's the radio station they listen to, by the way, WIIFM. What's in it for me? Here's a good thing to know about the D personality styles. You want to stick to the facts. Don't make it personal. So as an I love anecdotes and those human interest stories. And so as an I, we might be trying to make a decision, and somebody around the table might say, my uncle did this, and he was very happy with it. I'm like, man, if it's good enough for your uncle, then it's good enough for us. Let's do this, right? But you can't do that with a D personality style. They need facts, figure, data, right? They need something tangible in order to make that decision. It can't be a personal anecdote or a story. The thing to avoid when you're talking to Ds, don't ramble or repeat yourself. Don't joke around too much. Don't be too social or jovial. They will set the tone for that. Oh, think about this. Ds, they like to make quick decisions. Taking a long time to decide is actually physically or mentally painful for that D personality style, right? So, if you're still talking about this, like we haven't decided yet, right? So don't draw out that decision-making process. Don't take too long to decide. That's painful for that D personality style. Don't make generalizations. Nobody likes this. Oh, really? Nobody likes this. So you surveyed everybody, right, in the organization, and nobody likes this. So again, you can't make generalizations when you're talking to a D personality style. If you have worked with a D, you've already experienced this. Don't focus on problems without a solution. The Ds in your life have already said, stop bringing me problems unless you have a possible solution. Okay, so Ds are solution oriented. They don't want to focus on the problems. Don't make unsupported statements. Again, those generalizations, you have to use current facts, figures, data if you're going to make a statement or try to convince a D personality style. So going back to this, those unsupported statements, you need to be able to show them where you got that information. Here's the study. Here's the budget. Here are the numbers that I'm looking at. For the I personality style, look, the do's are pretty easy. Keep the environment positive. I's are sometimes defined as active positive movement in a favorable environment. If the environment's favorable, then the I's are active and positive, right? And so if you keep the environment positive for the I stays very productive. I's do their best work. They become more creative when they're thinking out loud, when they're brainstorming, when they're talking to other people. So you might want to give them an environment where they can verbalize their thoughts and ideas, bounce their ideas off of other people. Let them share testimonials. They will share stories about things, right? Everything is a story with the I personality style. You can give them details, just make sure they're not overwhelming. The amount of information that the I will pay attention to is a lot less than that of a C, for example. The I style would rather talk than write, which means they would rather come to your office, knock on your door, and talk to you about this project than put it in a memo. or write it down. Do you mean? So know that about the I personality style. A lot of times they're the ones that will pick up the phone or even just walk over and knock on your door. What about this? I's are really good at starting things, but then they get distracted and they don't finish. So if you're going to incentivize an I, you might want to incentivize the follow through. You might want to wait to pay them until after the job is done, right? That's the I personality style. And the things to avoid with the I: don't eliminate their social time. Again, their active positive movement in a favorable environment. Don't interrupt or ignore them. Don't do all the talking. You've got to let them feel like they can contribute. Just don't tell them what to do and then just shut down all conversation. Don't reject their thoughts and ideas. Don't ask them to support. Well, where'd you get those numbers, right? I's will feel that, like they'll take that as hostile. And so again, it's a negative environment for that I personality style. For the S's, some things to keep in mind are this: be personable, be agreeable. Politeness matters. Manners matter when you're dealing with the S personality style. And remember, S's are 69% of the general population. Express a genuine interest in them. Make sure that they understand that your appreciation of their work or their talents are sincere. Look, S's can change. S's can adapt. They just need time to adapt. A D can adapt just like that. Even an I can do that. But the S needs to think about it and make sure it's the right thing to do before they make that change. Give them clearly defined roles. Tell them what's expected of them. Provide them with personal assurances. Look, I know this is new to you, but I'm right here if you have any questions, right? That goes a long way with that S personality style. Here's something that you need to know. If right now you're a manager and 69% of your employees are this S personality style, substituting the word you with the word we is going to go a long way to increasing compliance, right? So let me tell you what I mean. If you say to an S personality style, hey, you go do this, the chances are that S personality style eventually will say, you can't make me. I'm not going to do it. Here, I'm going to tell you a secret about the S personality style. S's, if the unstoppable force in the universe is a D personality style, the immovable object in that same universe is the S personality style. The harder you push an S, the more they tend to stay exactly where they are. So the harder you push an S towards doing a job or doing something, the more they tend to resist, right? And so we know this about the S personality style. You want to avoid pushing them. Another thing we know about the S personality style is they work better, instinctively better, as part of a team. So when you say, hey, you go clean the bathroom, for example, the S is like, I'm not going to do it. But instead, at the end of the day, if you own a convenience store and you're the manager and you have an S employee, and at the end of the day, you say, hey, S, go clean the bathroom, there's a chance that S will say, you can't make me. And if you say, well, then you're fired, they'll say, don't worry about it, I quit, right? If at the end of the day, instead of saying, hey, you go clean the bathroom, you say this: hey, the last thing we need to do before we can go home is get the bathrooms cleaned, and you just let it lay. The S styles in your employ, right, in your vicinity, remember, they're instinctively helpful. They instinctively want to work as part of a team. They're community minded. They might say, listen, I'll do the toilets if somebody else will get the mirrors and somebody else mops, right? Who cares who does it as long as we do it together, as long as the job gets done. So whenever you can substitute the word you with the word we, you're going to find, especially with a majority of people that you work with, 69% of the population, compliance is going to go up significantly. The things that you need to avoid when you're dealing with the S personality style, again, I talked about this. Don't push or pressure them. S's don't like that. Don't be overly demanding or abrupt. Don't be impolite or rude. Manners matter with the S personality style. Don't be aggressive or confrontational. And then don't be fake or insincere. That S style can smell insincerity like a mile away. The C personality styles, some things to remember about the C: prepare your case in advance. They will, right? So use facts, figures, data, get that information, have it ready to support whatever you're trying to advocate for. Prepare your case in advance, support statement with facts. But let me say this: relevant facts, right? up-to-date facts. Don't use facts from like the 70s. Support your statements with relevant, correct facts because they will check up on them. Be as exact and precise as you can with your communication. I need you to be there at 3:30 rather than I need you to be there sometime at this afternoon, right? Be as exact and precise as you can. Be ready to answer their questions. Don't take it personally. Cs need information in order to make decisions. So understand that they're probably going to ask some follow-up questions. It's okay. Try to avoid surprising them. Last minute changes, Cs don't process well. Be patient, persistent, and diplomatic. And I guess that's pretty good advice for all the styles, but especially with the C personality style, right? Answer their questions. Don't take it personally. Be as diplomatic as you can, and that's the best way to improve communication with not only the C, but probably the D, I, S, and C as well. So listen, again, I know that I have unpacked a ton of information. Let me go over these last communication don'ts with the C, and then I can just kind of maybe hang out and answer questions. But with the C, don't refuse to share the details with them. Don't give them just general guidelines. Again, precise communication. Don't give them unclear expectations or vague or changing expectations. Don't expect them to provide a guesstimate. A guesstimate is a fantastic word that I made up. I used to ask the C's in my life to just give me a ballpark figure, right? Just give me a ballpark figure. But C's are very uncomfortable. They want to give you an exact figure whenever they can. So don't ask them to make a guess. Don't answer their questions vaguely or casually. And then don't push them for immediate answers. And again, between these communication do's and don'ts, you're going to improve your communication with the C style, drastically. So listen, thank you for putting up with me. Thank you for hanging out with me for this hour. I think it went pretty fast. I hope that there was something that you can take away with you today, right away, that you can start using with your business. Okay. But let me do this. The only chance I have to interact with you is if you use that comment section in your LinkedIn. So if there's anything that you want me to go back, address, or maybe clarify or expand on, please put that in the chat window or in the comments window. I will do my best to answer them right now. But if there's nothing else, I don't see anything else coming in. Just give me just a second to make sure that I'm not missing anything. All right, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm gonna hang out if anything comes in. Shana, if you're still out there, I know that there's some stuff that you have to take care of on the back end. I'm going to give it back to you right now. But again, I'm going to try to hang out here for at least a couple more minutes to make sure you guys don't have anything, any other questions, or if there's anything else I can help you with. If you have to log off, I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing, and hopefully we'll get to interact with each other again shortly.